trying to figure out linkage. I've got this Winters quick change. Well, happily that worked quite good. Got my bolts in both sides of that bracket. The transmission's solid. I can roll it around. I need to finish putting the bolts in this thing and put it all back together. Got all my plates and stuff laying here. So we'll just press on, get this thing welded up, and brackets made, all back together. And I tried to squirt a little more WD-40 in the back there, but it's blowing wind pretty good way out here. Well, I did a little cleanup. I went through all of the bolt holes here and run a tap into them. They're all good. I don't see nothing stripped. This one here on the bottom is not all that great, but everything else cleaned up real good. And this one's a little chewed up as well. But anyway, there's nothing here that will keep it from bolting up. And I did the same thing here to the block. You won't be able to see it, but I ran a tap into everything there. Looks like that flex plate's good enough. It might be a little bent, but I think when I bolt it up to the torque converter, it'll fix that. So, should be ready to go in, and shouldn't have any trouble at all there. This torque converter went in real well and turns very smoothly. I don't want to do a hell of a lot to it there with no fluid in it, but I'll make sure I put 3-4 quarts in it before I try to do anything. But it's real smooth and real easy to turn. That bearing I put in it, I'm sure is good, and everything should be good. I never did adjust this external band here. Probably ought to do that while I got it up here instead of waiting until I try to get it in there. But I'm about ready to manhandle this thing down on the floor and then slide it up there. Of course, once I put it in, that'll be great. Then I can put my starter in it. I haven't even turned that motor over. Well, just by hand, maybe 10 turns. But I want to put some oil in it, and turn it until I get some oil pressure. I didn't pre-lube it with the gears or anything, or with a drill. And I've got a distributor that came with it. I sell new distributors, new standalone distributors. I think that's what I'm going to do, is put one of them in it. But the problem is those use AGI wires. I'm going to go through this old one I have, where it's at here. Yeah, it's here in this mess of stuff. Oh, there's my tire gauge I was looking for. I probably ought to chuck this thing up in the lathe and see if it'll work. That's one thing that I will need, is a good distributor. I don't think I have an ignition box for it. I need to make up my mind. What am I going to do? It had a cap and wires on it. I'm just going to blow it off, put it in the lathe, and see if I can see if it's even working at all. Well, I threw this thing up here in the lathe and turning good. The vacuum or the advance is working. Vacuum advance works, and it's generating voltage here. Of course, that's pulse. So the faster it goes, the more voltage it makes. So I'm sure this distributor is good, but I don't have an ignition box for it. I'm gonna look on eBay and see what I can get for an ignition box, stock Chrysler, or try to figure out what I can do with one of my standalones. It's going to be the difference in the cost of plug wires, basically. Well, I got that bracket I made welded onto the jack, and I've got the transmission down. I got it on the floor, and I was able to tilt it up, and I got it kind of balanced right now. The jack's got to go forward about 2 or 3 inches. That's as low as it goes. It looks like I'm going to have to maybe jack the car up itself to get the bell housing past the firewall. It's going to be real close there. I think I'll be able to get it. But I think I can pound my bracket I made around there. If I can get even one bolt in it, will hold it on that jack. Anyway, looks like this plan's working so far. Let's see if I can get it on there good now. Well, happily that worked quite good. Got my bolts in both sides of that bracket. The transmission's solid. I can roll it around, and it looks like I can twist it a little and get it through the hole. I've got a plate right there right now that's holding that torque converter in. I probably didn't even need that because it was all tilted tail shaft down. But I think I'm close enough there to roll this thing in. It rolls real easy. It's on that jack and on a clean floor, so I had to take the handle off to jack it, but it looks like it's good. And the second I jack it, it starts to tilt it up a little, because you can see right now it's kind of parallel with the floor and the motor's tilted down. So I'll play around with that a little. I think that's the worst thing I have to do. I have to jack up that motor. I don't have any more jacks. I got one hydraulic jack that's not very good, but it does work. Anyway, I'm gonna get that plate off there and see how close we are to getting that transmission in. Well, that works surprisingly good. I just rolled it straight up to the motor and gave it a couple jacks. And, I'm within 3/4 of an inch and it looks pretty parallel. So I think that's probably good enough to get a couple long bolts on it. And that'll hold the alignment, and then wiggle it forward until I can get it on these guide pins here. And it should slide right up there. Got plenty of room. Look like my little plate's bent. I knew that, but I was hoping it'll bolt up to that torque converter and straighten out. The wheel rotated around a little bit. It's real easy. I could do it with a screwdriver. But anyway, I've put a couple bolts in here and see if I can get it started. Well, that's only way that could have possibly went any easier to have somebody else do it. I mean, I just screwed the bolts straight in there by finger, got them almost all the way tight. Tightened the two top ones up a little bit, let the jack down, popped on the pins. It's in and no problem. I couldn't believe how easy that was. So it looks like the hour or so making a bracket for the jack probably saved me 2 or 3 hours fighting with the damn thing, stripping the bolts and get them in crooked and stuff. But I can't believe it. Well, I can, but yeah, that's just need to tighten this up a little. And, I'm going to get the right bolts for it, of course. But yep, that's snugging up real good. No problem. Good enough now to take my jack out. And that's really nice. I'll remember that. Anyway, I'll take that jack apart, take it out of there, and cut off my adapter so I can use it for a jack again. And we'll go ahead and tighten these things up. Well, here's another little goodie that came with the car. This is an old Tropic Air heater, and it's pretty rusted up. Actually, some of the paint broke off. Don't look too bad inside, but it has all of the vents. It's not beat up, or not crushed anyway. Looks like it's got a little place for a defroster in it. And here in Oregon, kind of need that. But anyway, this can be cleaned up. And I tried to plug it in, wouldn't turn at all. but I took the cover off and I was able to free it up just a little bit, and it would barely run under its own power, and it was pretty snug. So what I did is, I don't know if you can see in there, but I took a little drill bit, a tiny guy like that, drilled a hole in the back of the plate, and then drilled a hole in the bearing, back of the bearing. Got some WD-40 squirted in there, and it was just struggling and struggling, and then all of a sudden it took off. So right now it spins real free. Wouldn't spin at all before. And you can hear it's got a pretty good fan in it. So I was just debating, was it worth cutting a hole in the 4 holes in the firewall? Looks like it's still pulling, not slowing down or anything. I don't know. I mean, I had to take that motor out, grease those bearings up. Couldn't really get to this front one. All I did on it was just spray a little WD-40 right down on the top of the bearing and hope some of it might soak in. Anyway, it's working good enough. I can clean it up and paint it nice. I don't really want to take it completely apart and take that motor out. I probably should. I'm not sure what's holding it. Might be just these 2 bolts here on the sides. I'll play around with it a little more, but basically that's going to make a pretty nice little heater, and I need one. So this will be another project. You know what this got to do with the transmission, except that when I was waiting to put that transmission back in, I was just looking at everything. So I can measure this out, mark up my firewall and cut it, and I'll use this as a heater. Well, I'm trying to figure out linkage. I've got this Winters quick change or Sidewinder thing, and it was set up, this bar back here was coming out the back, and that was backwards. When I would run the cable up in there to where I could get it, putting it in low would put it in park. So I was able to take these bolts here out, these 2 bolts here, and I just flipped it over. Some of this linkage now is kind of upside down, but it's clear and good. Everything's moving. It's not exactly a one-handed deal, but it's all clearing, and I've got my cable running the right way. I'm going to put it in the car and see what chances I got of hooking it up like it is. Now this is more or less the setup I'm gonna have. This cover will go in there about like that. I had to put it right there. I'll show you why. Over here on this side, it's got a little plate that hangs down. I don't know if you can see that or not, but there's a shifter or a little tab that hangs down, so when I pull it forward, yeah, you can see it's hitting the wood there. So that's all the way at third. That needs to be turned over. The cable needs to be flipped over, but it's not really changing too much what's going on up here. This is gonna moving the cable right now. So on that shifter up there, all the way back is park, and so when I put this in park, there we go. That's where that's got to go, and this cable has to go like this. Man, it's really bending it up here, and this cable's strong, so I'm gonna have to go around the transmission and I'll reroute that. There we go. That's a much better shot. It's I gotta go over to this side of the floorboard and around the transmission, but just naturally laying there, it's give me a pretty straight shot. I can move this over probably about to right here, so the cable will be going through the center of the floor, and I don't know how well it's gonna move in here or anything, but that's fairly straight. I'm going to put it down and see if it will move now. I kind of mocked up something. I took a piece of angle iron that I had from a bed frame, and the reason I used that because it's tempered steel, and I just ground a little groove in it that cable would go into, roughly cut it off and clamped it real good onto the transmission. I'm sure that bracket is strong enough. Once I figure it out, I know just putting a bolt in it, they want to twist around and loosen up, but I can always put a little side brace on it or something. But that's more or less where it's going to go. And that's up in the park. Oh no. What I did there, trying to pull it down, it's going the wrong way still. How did I do that? I don't know what I did. Maybe just flipping this over didn't change it at all. Except turning it around where I can see it better. I'll have to figure on this one. Now I just had a minor brain freeze here. I even started taking the shifter apart again. But where I thought it was in park, it was actually all the way in first. but now I've got it in park and it's all the way back. And so there's should be reverse, neutral, first, second, and third. And over there it's you can see I've hit the limit of my travel. It's not really going all the way down into third, but it is going up into park. Okay, so there's park. You got a little bit of that hole should be moved over a little, but I think what I can do is move this cable over. Let's see. All right, it's not going all the way down into first here. So I think if I move this back bracket over, that'll give me a shorter pry on it. I may have to bore another hole in that shifter up there. I'm going to just try moving it first because they don't involve any mechanical work. Alright, I moved it to where it's all the way up into low here. Second sounded good, clicked good. Third, it's pretty much lined up here. And neutral, it lined up pretty good here. Well, no, it's off. There's neutral there. So it needs to be a little shorter throw. Reverse. There's a good click there, and I'm half an inch off here. This is where the transmission's catching right there. And this is where the lever's catching. And let's go up into park. Well, park is good, not quite here. So I don't know how much that total is. Yeah, and we're back 1/4 of an inch here. So I think what I need to do is pull that arm off there and drill that hole in a little closer. Moving this on the back here is not really shortening it enough to do anything, and I don't want to really have it at an angle like that. I'd rather have it straight. So I think the solution is to bore another hole in it. I think we'll be good with that. We'll give it a try. Well, after some highly scientific rat rod calculations, I determined that this thing was about a half an inch short. So I used my old bent up stripped one here that I took off, and I got it to where I thought it was the right length, and I made that one. It's just tacked right now, but it's all the way down into first, and there's park, and that's park, and pin looks like it's just going to fall right in. That should be first, or reverse, neutral, drive, second, and low. So everything's going good. You can hear it clicking in the transmission. There's second, drive, it clicked. It's good up here. There's neutral. That's good. Reverse and park. So it looks like that's geometry wise correct. It might be, off a little, need some adjustments, but now figure me some way of getting those 2 pieces of angle iron off there that I've clamped on. I need to bolt it into the transmission, and I need to put and make some kind of bracket so it won't move at all. And in that top bracket there, I probably ought to put 2 bolts in it so I can have a little adjustment to twist it. But anyway, I'll pull that shifter out of there, weld it up good, grind it off, and then finish mocking up these brackets here for the cable holder. I was just looking at this shifter and where it's going to go. I've got quite a bit of room to move that cable around. It's pretty flexible. Well, it's not solid, put it that way, but I think it's going to have to come over towards me a little and maybe forward some. That's it just kind of looks like it's a little far back, and it may be a little high as well, but looks like I got plenty of room there for the cable. I won't be doing any of that until I get a floorboard in and try to determine where that cable is going to go through the floor. It's not going to be an ideal scene, but I can put about a 1.5 inch hole so I can feed that cable through it, and I can always use a big rubber grommet or something around that, fix it. But all this is going to have to wait. I need to finish putting the bolts in this thing and put it all back together. Got all my plates and stuff laying here. So we'll just press on, get this thing welded up and brackets made, all back together. By the way, here's the next day with my little fan. It's had a chance to warm up and cool down, and I tried to squirt a little more WD-40 in the back there, but it's blowing wind pretty good way out here. Yeah, it's blowing plenty. I think it'll be enough air to really heat that compartment up. You just have to fix any leaks that are in it. I doubt if it leaks. It don't look like it's been poked through anywhere. I don't see any real rust. And I can eventually, if I have to, replace that motor. Depends on how hard it's going to be to get apart. I may have to take it apart a little to clean it, but I'll find out when I get to that. And the last thing I have to do, I don't have a carburetor on it right now. I got a bid in on a eBay carburetor. It's a AFB. Those are good carburetors, but it's a 625, which is a little better than a 600. Be good for this motor. And I've got a bell housing kick down. You can see it's that orange bracket there on that one there. Try to zoom and change my settings. Anyway, that little bell housing crank there goes on to the bell housing here, and I think that's for the kick down linkage. I'm pretty sure it is. But I've got a braided cable. I'm just kind of trying to decide whether I ought to run a big braided cable all the way down there and bypass any kind of mechanical stuff or what. But I got to hook it up. It shouldn't be too hard. Now the transmission's in and everything, I'll probably pull this hood off and go about fixing up everything. I've got to run my battery cable, put my starter in. I could put the starter in now, I suppose. I can't really hook up the torque converter. I don't have any bolts, and this is a good place to do it, so it don't make sense to put the starter in and then take it back out and then put bolts in just to get a cable in. I might just stick it up in there with one bolt or something so I can set my length and cut my cables. And don't know what I'm going to do about this battery disconnect. Yeah, this battery disconnect's a good heavy switch. Mostly I wanted it for the lug so I can take my battery cable there. It comes over to about here and then run my other cable from here up to the starter. Now the floorboard is going to cover all this up, so I don't know whether I should just do it like this and cut me a hole in the floor and mount the battery switch to it, which is kind of a good thing. You know, you can turn it off and take the key with you. So luckily I got two keys. But anyway, I need to figure out some way. I wanted to put it into the metal somewhere, but it has to be in this general area. And so in order to fix my wiring problem, I'm not exactly sure where the seat is. I think it's right about this area here in the front. I guess I could sort of measure it, but here's the steering wheel right above it, so that's probably what I'll do, is just make me a little rectangular hole, stick that down in there and bolt it right to the floorboard. Put a little silicone on it so it won't leak water back up in it. But that's what I got to do to wire it. So, you know, from this general area I can run enough cable up there to the starter to see what's going on there and cut it, solder that. And I need to really make up my mind what I'm going to do about this floor. I put a piece of 1/2-inch plywood in it. And one time I cut the hole out there for the transmission, it was kind of weak right there in the front. So I wanted to use a 3/4 inch piece, and that would be plenty strong, and I can do one sheet. So I have to think about that floor. Anyway, I really can't do too much with this as far as wiring. I mean, I can just wire it up hanging there to start it. But I've got a transmission cooler, and I've got a bunch of aluminum line. You can see it up there on the wall. I had it left over from another project. That's 3/8 aluminum. So I was going to use it for transmission lines. Might be better to just try to use a hose. I'm going to run. I know I'm going to use that for gas line, so I'll probably stretch me a piece in here and see how much I'm going to use for gas. And then if I got enough left, I'll use it for the transmission cooler lines too. But I have to get a 3/4 meal iron pipe to flare fitting, or that's what's in the transmission. So I gotta get a 3/8 flare to barb to hook up hoses to hook up that aluminum. I might be better off just with rubber hoses and clamp them down good. Again, I'll have to see what's going on with that.